Still remember that evening, the rain tapping gently on my window, the smell of wet earth sneaking into the house through the half-open door, and the old clock striking 6 with its tired, metallic chime. I had just poured myself a cup of tea when the knock came, soft, hesitant, like someone testing whether the house itself still had a heartbeat. I wasn't expecting anyone. No one ever visits me anymore. My husband's been gone 12 years, and my son, Daniel, he died 3 years ago. Or at least that's what I believed, until that night. I shuffled toward the door, holding my shawl tighter around my shoulders. "Who is it?" I called out, my voice shaking more from the memories than the cold. No answer, only silence and the faint hiss of rain. I opened the door, and there she was, a young woman, soaked to the bone, mascara running down her cheeks, eyes red as though she'd been crying for hours. She looked barely 30. "Mrs. Whitmore?" she whispered. "Yes," I replied cautiously. Her lips trembled. I'm Anna, Daniel's wife." For a second, my mind stopped. The world shrank into that tiny doorway. The teacup slipped from my hand and shattered against the floor, sending a small splash of brown liquid across the white tiles. I stared at her, unable to move or breathe. "What did you just say?" She looked up at me with those desperate eyes. Please let me in. I can explain." I should have slammed the door. I should have demanded proof, a reason, anything. But instead, I stepped aside. Something inside me, perhaps the mother still aching for her lost child, made room for her. She walked in timidly, clutching a worn leather bag against her chest. Her clothes were damp and clung to her frame. Her hands shook as she brushed the rain from her dark hair. "Thank you," she murmured, glancing around my small, dimly lit living room as though every shadow was watching her. I couldn't take my eyes off her. Daniel never married. He never even had a serious girlfriend that I knew of. I'd have known, wouldn't I? He told me everything, or so I thought. "Daniel never mentioned you," I said, my voice flat but my heart pounding. She nodded slowly. "He couldn't. We got married secretly, just before the accident." The word accident burned through me like a blade. I sat down, gripping the edge of the sofa. "My son died in a car crash. There was a body. I buried him." Her eyes flickered. "That's what you were told." I froze. "What do you mean, told?" Anna's fingers trembled as she unzipped her bag. She pulled out a small envelope, yellowed and soft around the edges, and handed it to me. "He wrote this. For you." I turned the envelope over. My name was written in Daniel's handwriting. I'd know that messy slant anywhere. My hands shook as I opened it, half terrified of what I might find. "Mom," the letter began, "if you're reading this, it means something's gone wrong. I can't tell you everything now, but I'm safe. Don't believe what they'll say about me. I'll find a way back." The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. "This isn't possible," I whispered. "This can't be real. I saw the reports, the police, the hospital." "They lied," Anna said quietly. "Daniel's alive." I felt the air leave my lungs. "What did you say?" She looked straight into my eyes. "Your son didn't die, Mrs. Whitmore. He disappeared, and they made you believe he was dead." I laughed, a short, broken laugh that didn't sound like mine. "You expect me to believe that? That my son is alive somewhere after 3 years? That the body, the funeral, Everything was fake? Anna's eyes glistened. Yes, because I was there. Her words sank deep into me like stones falling into water. She spoke slowly, carefully, as though each memory hurt to touch. Daniel found something he shouldn't have. He told me people were following him. He said if anything happened, I had to find you. I shook my head, tears streaming freely now. My boy wasn't in danger. He worked in finance, not crime. She smiled sadly. You didn't know what he really did you? I stared at her, my mind a storm of disbelief and hope I didn't dare to feel. Who are you, really? I'm the woman he loved, she whispered, and I promised him I'd protect you. At that moment, lightning flashed outside, throwing her face into stark relief, eyes wide with fear, jaw trembling, shadows crawling behind her. Something about her expression sent a chill down my spine. Protect me? From what? I asked. Before she could answer, there was a sound outside, a faint crunch of gravel, slow footsteps approaching the porch. Anna's face went pale. She grabbed my hand. Don't open the door, she hissed. My heart thudded. Who is it? Please, she begged, her nails digging into my skin. Don't make a sound. The knocking came again, louder this time. 3 sharp raps. I stood frozen. The silhouette of a man appeared through the frosted glass, tall and motionless. Then, just as suddenly, the knocking stopped. Silence. The night held its breath. When I turned back to Anna, she was trembling. They found me, she whispered. I shouldn't have come. She grabbed her bag and rushed toward the back door. Wait, I cried, running after her. Who are they? What's happening? She looked back one last time, eyes filled with something between sorrow and terror. If they ask, you never saw me, she said. Daniel's alive, but if they find him before we do, he won't be for long. And then she was gone, swallowed by the darkness and the rain. I stood there for what felt like hours, her words echoing in my mind. Daniel's alive. Daniel's alive. But as I turned back toward the living room, I saw something on the floor, something she must have dropped in her rush to leave. A small silver locket. Inside was a photo of Daniel, smiling, and beside him, that same woman, wearing a wedding dress. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the house, every whisper of the wind felt like a warning. I kept the letter on the table beside me, reading it again and again until the words burned into my memory. I'm safe. Don't believe what they'll say about me. Safe. He said he was safe. But why would my son write something like that if he truly was? By morning, the rain had stopped, leaving the world heavy and silent. I made tea just to feel the warmth in my hands. The house felt too quiet now, like it knew something terrible had stepped inside it last night and refused to leave. Anna's face haunted me. That desperate, broken look in her eyes. The way she said, "They found me." Who were they? And what did they want with my son, or me? I decided to start where everything ended, Daniel's death. I opened the old chest in my bedroom where I'd kept his belongings, photos, his university degree, his wristwatch, and the official police report. The report said car accident on the M4 highway, vehicle found burned beyond recognition. The dental records matched. But the line that caught me now, the one I'd never questioned before, was identification confirmed by employer documentation. Not family, not me. I remembered how the police wouldn't let me see the body, saying it was too damaged. I accepted it then, broken and numb, because I trusted them. But now, my trust began to crumble. At noon, I walked to the police station, my first time there in years. The same gray walls, the same smell of stale paper and rain-soaked uniforms. A young officer looked up from his desk. "Yes, ma'am, how can I help you?" "I'm here about my son," I said quietly. "Daniel Whitmore. Case closed 3 years ago." He clicked a few keys on his computer. "Accident case, right?" "Yes," I replied, clutching my bag. "But I think there's been a mistake." He raised an eyebrow. "A mistake?" "I have reason to believe he might still be alive." The look he gave me was polite, but pitying. The kind of look people reserve for those who've lost too much and can't let go. "Mrs. Whitmore, the case was confirmed through official means. The records are sealed now." "Who identified him?" I asked. He frowned. "Let me check. Says here, identification provided by a company associate." My stomach turned. "Which company?" He hesitated. "I can't disclose that, ma'am. You'd have to file a request with headquarters." As I turned to leave, he added softly, "I'm sorry for your loss." Loss. The word stung differently now. When I returned home, I found my front door slightly open, just an inch. I froze. I was sure I'd locked it before leaving. My heart started pounding as I pushed it open. The living room looked untouched until I saw the table. The letter was gone. I rushed forward, rifling through the papers, but it had vanished. The locket was still there, lying open as if to taunt me. Someone had been inside my home. I checked the windows, all closed. The back door, locked. Whoever it was had a key, or knew how to pick one. My hands shook as I picked up the phone and dialed the number on the back of the police card I'd taken earlier. Before I could press call, the phone rang. I nearly dropped it. "Hello?" A woman's voice whispered. "Mrs. Whitmore?" "Yes, who is this?" "Don't go back to the police. Don't trust them." The voice was faint, trembling like she was speaking from a closet. I recognized it instantly. "Anna? Where are you? What's happening?" Silence. Then, in a hurried whisper, "They know you have the letter. They'll come for it. Leave the house. Don't tell anyone." "Anna, wait, what about Daniel? Is he alive?" "I'll find you when it's safe," she said quickly. "Check the old lighthouse. That's where he started uncovering everything. Don't trust anyone in uniform, not even those who say they knew him." "Anna, please," I cried, but the line went dead. The old lighthouse. I hadn't been there in decades. Daniel used to go there as a boy. It was our secret picnic place by the cliffs, before the storms tore it apart. Why would he go there again as an adult? I felt dizzy, like the ground beneath me was tilting. The letter was gone, my house violated, and a stranger claiming to be my daughter-in-law was warning me not to trust the police. I should have called someone. But who? I had no one left. So I did the only thing that made sense. I went to the lighthouse. By late afternoon, clouds had gathered again, heavy and bruised. The narrow road to the cliffs was slick with mud, the sea roaring below like some great beast. The lighthouse stood tall and abandoned, its windows shattered, its white paint flaking like old skin. As I approached, I noticed something strange. A faint light flickered from inside. Candlelight. I pushed open the door, my heart hammering. The air smelled of salt and rust. Inside, the floor was covered in damp papers, Maps, documents, photos. I bent down and picked one up. It was Daniel, standing in front of a building I didn't recognize. He looked different, older, bearded, and very much alive. Behind me, a floorboard creaked. "Daniel?" I whispered, turning slowly. But it wasn't Daniel. It was a man in a black coat, face hidden in the shadow. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice trembling. He didn't answer. Instead, he took a step forward. I backed away, clutching the photo. "Stay back!" "Mrs. Whitmore," he said finally, his tone calm but cold. "You shouldn't be here." "How do you know my name?" He reached into his coat, pulling out a badge. "Special Investigations Division. We're looking into Daniel Whitmore's case." I froze. "Then you know he's alive." He stared at me for a moment, then said quietly, "That depends on what you mean by alive." Something about his voice, measured, detached, made my skin crawl. I glanced at the floor, where one of the papers had a symbol drawn on it, 3 interlocking circles with a line through the middle. "What is this?" I asked, pointing. He stepped closer, his boots crunching on the glass. "You shouldn't have seen that. Leave this place, Mrs. Whitmore. For your own safety." I took another step back. "Where's my son?" He hesitated. "Some truths, ma'am, are better left buried." Then he turned and walked out into the storm, leaving the door swinging behind him. When I looked down again, one of the papers near the candle caught my eye, a printed receipt from Knoxwell Research Laboratories, dated 2 days before Daniel's supposed death. In the corner, a handwritten note read, "They know what we did." The candle flickered, then went out, and in the darkness I realized I wasn't alone anymore. For a moment, I thought it was the sea itself breathing inside the lighthouse, low, steady, and close. I held my breath to separate the sounds. The ocean roared below the cliffs, the old iron lantern ratcheted in the wind, and under it all, there it was again. A soft inhale, a careful exhale, as if someone was trying not to be heard. "Who's there?" I whispered. The darkness answered with a faint scrape. My fingers trembled over the candle tin, hunting for the little box of matches I'd seen earlier. I struck one. The sulfur hissed. A small, shaking circle of light bloomed in my palm. The room lurched back into being. Peeling walls, scattered papers, a rusted ladder up to the gallery. The breath came from behind the curving stairs, from the shadow pooled there. "Don't scream," said a voice I didn't recognize. I didn't. I couldn't. The match burned down to my fingertips, and I lit the candle with a desperate shove, the flame catching late, swallowing the wick in a hungry, nervous glow. He stepped out of the shadow. Mid-40s, gaunt, a bruise blooming along his jaw like a purple thumbprint. Not the man with the badge, another one. He held his hands up in surrender, eyes flicking to the door, then back to me. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said hoarsely. "You're Daniel's mother." I nodded, throat too tight to answer. He glanced at the papers strewn over the floor, at the receipt from Knoxwell Research Laboratories, at the marked photographs. He swallowed. "He told me you'd come if the letter ever surfaced." His gaze sharpened. "You got the letter, didn't you?" "Someone took it from my house," I said, voice scraping against the words. "I had it last night. When I came home from the station, it was gone." He flinched. "Then they're moving faster than we thought." "Who are they?" I demanded. "And who are you?" He hesitated, then reached slowly into his coat and pulled out a folded, bent ID card. He set it on the floor and nudged it toward me with the toe of his boot, careful, as if we were both animals in a snare. Elliot Crane, it read, investigative journalist. I worked with Daniel, he said. Back then he was feeding me documents. He looked at the candle like it was a confession booth and he'd stepped into it too late. I wasn't careful. They found out. I picked up the ID. It trembled in my hand. What was he feeding you? What is all this? Elliot's eyes slid to the symbol, 3 interlocking circles with a slashed line that was scrawled across the margin of a photocopied page. Knoxwell called it Project Seraphim in the paperwork, he said. Human trials under a different name in the grants. Nothing in the public filings matched what we saw. Funds that didn't exist on paper, facilities registered to shell companies. We thought it was a simple embezzlement case, until the bodies. I felt the floor tilt under me. Bodies? Disappeared patients, he said. Compassionate use volunteers, people with no families, no insurance, no one to ask questions. They were paid in cash, shuttled to off-site clinics, and then the paperwork ended. And my son? My voice cracked. Daniel was an analyst at a bank. He handled portfolios. He traced money the way a tracker reads footprints, Elliot said softly. He followed the path Knoxwell wanted buried. He told me he'd found a private ledger pointing to a clinic by the docks. He sent me the symbol as a tag for files tied to Seraphim. Then he asked me for one last meet. Elliot's jaw worked. He didn't make it. He died, I whispered. They told me... They staged a burnout on the M4, Elliot said, bitter as rust. There was a body in that car, Mrs. Whitmore. I just don't think it was your son's. The candle sputtered as if to argue. The photograph in my palm, Daniel in front of a building, shivered with my shaking. If there was a body, I said, whose was it? Elliot's eyes were hollow. Seraphim needed cadavers that wouldn't be traced. The clinics had plenty. I'm sorry. The word cadavers hung in the air like a sour note. I wanted to be sick. I wanted to throw him out, light every candle in the world, call the police. Except a man with a badge had told me to run, and a woman with my son's locket had told me not to trust anyone in uniform. Why did Daniel write that he was safe? I asked finally. If he escaped, where is he? Elliot crouched carefully and gathered a damp stack of papers into a neater pile, as if ease and order might keep the room from cracking in half. He slid a file across to me, plastic sleeves, water-spotted but intact. He planned 2 contingencies. If they grabbed him, he had a dead drop. If he ran, he had a route. I opened the file. Inside were photocopies of shipping logs, names, numbers, the symbol like a bruise in the corners. Handwritten in Daniel's quick, slanted script. Lighthouse equals number 2. If I miss number 1, tell her this. On the next page, a small square of card was taped down. It was black, textured, with a first name pressed into it in silver foil. Anna. My heart lurched. He married her, I murmured, half to myself. He truly married her. Elliot looked at me sharply. You met her? She came to my door, I said, and then she ran. He nodded once, like a piece finally clicked where it should have been all along. Then he's still playing the plan. He told me if anything happened, Anna would bring you the letter, you'd come here, and you'd either find me or the thing he left. The thing? Elliot straightened, limped to the outer wall, and pressed his ear against the cracked plaster. He tapped 3 times. Hollow, hollow, then a duller thud. He turned to me with a tired little smile. Old lighthouse keepers hid whiskey in these, back when the taxes ran high. He reached into his pocket, produced a flathead screwdriver so worn it looked like a relic, and set its edge against a hairline seam along the baseboard. Daniel hid something better. The board fought us like a stubborn tooth. I wedged my fingers under the pry and leaned with my weight. The wood groaned. A splinter bit my skin. The board gave with a shudder and slid out just enough for Elliot to get his hand under it and haul. When it came away, the smell of salt and old paper rolled out. Inside the cavity lay a metal box, the kind a child might bury with treasures in a backyard. Elliot set it carefully between us and lifted the lid. Inside was a small digital recorder wrapped in oiled cloth and an envelope sealed with clear tape. On the envelope, in Daniel's inconsistent loops, "Mom, if it's you, press play first." My hand hovered over the recorder. The plastic was cold and smooth. I pressed the button. The little screen flared, and the room drew itself in to listen. Static. Then Daniel's voice. "Mom," he said, and the sound of him rumbled through me like a storm splitting open old, parched earth. He sounded breathless, amused and scared at the same time, my boy who laughed in church and ruined pictures by sneezing. "If you're hearing this, I'm not dead. Yet. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I left you like that. They were watching the house. I couldn't risk it. Anna's with me. We did something stupid, but it's the only way to fix what I found." A scrape, a whisper, a distant bang like a door in another world. His voice came back lower, urgent. "Knoxwell's Seraphim is laundering more than money. The clinics are real. The trial is a lie. They're moving people, tests, through a front at the docks. The ledger proves it. If I vanish, it'll be because they need me to shut up, or because I did what I'm about to do. Either way, don't trust anyone who says, 'Special Division.' They're not all bad, but some are bought. Find Elliot, find Anna. And Mom, this is the part you won't forgive me for." The recorder pinged softly, like his breath hit the mic. He laughed then, a small, cracked thing. "I signed the forms," he said. "I let them make me a number. It's the only way inside." The candle popped. Wax slurred down the side like tear tracks. "I'll send you the ledger when I can," he continued. "If I don't, go to the chapel on Gray Street. Sit in the 4th pew from the back. There's a hymn book with pages torn. Rock of Ages. Inside it, a key. It opens a locker at the bus terminal with duplicates of everything. Mom, if you get this far, I love you. I'm trying to get home. If I can't, tell yourself something nice about me at least once a day, okay?" The recording clicked off. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until I let it go and the room swayed. My knees buckled. Elliot reached out instinctively, but I steadied myself with a hand on the box. He nodded toward the envelope. "He wanted you to read that next." I peeled the tape with shaking fingers. Inside were 3 things: a single locker key on a brass ring, a scrap of paper with 2 names and a phone number, and a passport photograph of Daniel that was not my Daniel at all. His eyes were the same, his mouth the same, but his hair was shaved close, a shadow of beard along his jaw, a new scar bending one eyebrow like a raised finger. On the back of the photograph, he'd written, "If they show you a body, check the ear." "The ear?" I said aloud. Elliot leaned in. I turned the photo back over, traced my thumb along the curve of Daniel's left ear, where a little notch had sat since he fell off his bike when he was 8 and sliced it on a garden stake. A missing piece, I whispered. He said they'd forget it. You buried a stranger, Elliot said gently. I'm sorry. Outside, the wind rose and the sea struck the rocks harder, as if the whole cliff were grinding its teeth. I tucked the key into the pocket of my cardigan, the metal a cold weight against my heart. What now? I asked. Elliot's eyes went to the door, to the slice of gray beyond it. We get out before the badge man comes back with friends. We can go to the chapel, I said. Get the key, get the files. He hesitated. They've been watching the chapel. He told me last year they'd tagged anyone lingering in the back pews. The edges of the room seemed to curl inward. Fear rose like a tide, cool and slow and certain. Then The lighthouse door banged open so hard it slapped the wall and swung back. The candle jerked in its tin. Elliot threw an arm out instinctively, pulling me toward the shadow under the stairs as boots thudded on the threshold. Mrs. Whitmore? Called a voice, not loud, but clean and clear and close enough to taste. It's Anna. Don't be afraid. I stepped out before Elliot could stop me. She stood there soaked again, as if rain found her wherever she went. Her eyes, those desperate, stubborn eyes, met mine and softened. I'm sorry, she breathed. I left because they were outside your house. They took the letter. We don't have much time. Her gaze slid to Elliot and hardened. What's he doing here? He helped Daniel, I said. She shook her head once, brisk, like tearing a bandage. Maybe. Maybe not. We can argue later. Right now, we need to move. They know the lighthouse. How? Elliot snapped. Anna lifted her left hand just enough to show the underside of her wrist. A tiny black dot sat beneath the skin like a freckle in the wrong place. Because they're tracking me, she said. And unless you want to lead them to the only proof Daniel died wrong, we have to cut it out. The candle guttered. The sea threw its weight against the cliff, and I, an old woman who had spent 3 years teaching my lungs how to breathe without my son, found my voice again. Then we do it here, I said. We do it now. And afterward, we go get my boy. Anna's words cracked through the air like lightning, sharp, impossible, and final. Cut it out. Elliot froze, half bent near the hidden box, the screwdriver still slick with rust in his hand. You can't be serious, he said. I am, Anna answered. They embedded the tracker right before I escaped. It's under the skin, powered by heat. If we don't take it out, they'll triangulate this place within minutes. I'd never seen fear like that, not the frantic kind, but the quiet, bone-deep kind that comes when a person already knows how the story ends. Elliot cursed under his breath and dug into his coat. He found a pocket knife and a rag that looked like it had once been white. I've got whiskey in the car, he muttered. There's no time, Anna said. Do it now. I stood there, paralyzed between them, an old woman whose life had turned into someone else's thriller. There must be another way, I whispered. A hospital, a doctor. They'll report it, Anna said softly. And then we're done. Her voice broke on that word. Done. So we did it. Elliot poured candle wax on the blade and wiped it with the rag. He took a deep breath and knelt. Anna gritted her teeth, pressing her arm on the table. I held her shoulder, feeling her tremble through the bones. Quick, she said. He cut. She didn't scream, not properly, just a single muffled sound that broke halfway, and I swear the whole lighthouse went still, even the wind holding its breath. Blood welled in a thin line. Elliot pinched the skin, fished out a bead-sized chip that gleamed dully in the candlelight. "There," he said, dropping it into the tin where it hissed and cracked against the flame. "Now they'll think you're at the bottom of the sea." I tore part of my shawl and pressed it against her wrist. She winced, then looked at me with something that almost resembled gratitude. "You didn't have to help," she said quietly. "I already buried my son once," I replied. "I'm not doing it again." For a while we said nothing. Only the waves and the smell of salt and blood filled the silence. Then Elliot spoke. "The key," he reminded me. "Gray Street Chapel. We can still get there before dawn." Anna's face blanched. "It's watched," she whispered. "Maybe," he said, "but if we wait, they'll follow the signal trail here anyway. That chip still broadcast for a few minutes before we fried it." I looked between them, the frightened young woman and the man who'd seen too much, and felt something unfamiliar surge in me. Not courage, not exactly. Something older. Something a mother learns after grief has hollowed her out and left only iron. "Then we go," I said. We left the lighthouse before the candle died. The rain had turned to mist, curling over the cliffs like smoke. Elliot's car, a dented blue sedan that smelled of oil and coffee, waited on the muddy track. Anna sat in the back, her wrist bandaged with my torn shawl. I sat up front beside Elliot, holding Daniel's recorder like it was his heart beating between my hands. The road wound through black fields, the headlights cutting tunnels through fog. I remembered when Daniel was little, how he used to fall asleep in the car on the way home from seaside trips, head tilted against the window, dreaming with a smile. I wondered if he remembered me the same way, softly, somewhere out there. "Tell me something," I said suddenly. "How did Daniel meet you, Anna?" She hesitated. "Through the investigation. He needed someone on the inside. I worked at Knoxwell as a technician, samples division." "So it was real," I murmured. "The marriage." Her eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. "Yes," she said. "We married in a registry office, just us and a friend as witness. He wanted to tell you, but he couldn't risk the connection." Her voice cracked again. "He said you'd hate him for keeping secrets." I looked out the window. I could never hate my son. But secrets, they have a way of rotting everything they touch. Elliot's phone buzzed then, a flash of light in the dark. He cursed and threw it out the window in one smooth motion. "Tracker?" Anna asked. "Probably," he said. "Disposable burner my foot. They're all wired now." We drove in silence until the road curved down into the valley, the faint outline of the chapel rising ahead like a sleeping giant. The steeple was broken, its bell long gone. But I recognized the shape even after all these years. Daniel's father and I had been married there before time and weather peeled its paint. We parked behind the old stone wall. The moon slid out between clouds, silvering the weeds. "Stay close," Elliot said. We slipped through the heavy doors. Inside smelled of dust and mildew, pews crooked like old teeth. I found the fourth pew from the back. My knees shook as I knelt, pried open the hymn book, and there, just as he said, pages torn, Rock of Ages missing half its lines. Inside was a key, taped to the spine. A sound echoed from the entrance. Boots again. More than one pair this time. "Run," Elliot hissed. Anna grabbed my arm. We darted through the side aisle toward the vestry door, the key clutched in my fist. A beam of light swept across the chapel. Torches. Male voices barked orders, sharp and clipped. Elliot stayed behind just long enough to kick a pew over, the crash masking our escape. We spilled out into the graveyard, ducking behind leaning stones. I could feel my pulse in my ears. "They saw us," Anna whispered. Elliot caught up, breathing hard. "There's a path through the orchard, leads back to town." We ran. My chest burned. The wet grass pulled at my shoes. Once I slipped, and Anna caught me before I fell. Her hand was cold but strong. Behind us, the chapel lights flared brighter. Shouts. One of the men yelled something into a radio. The air buzzed with static. "Keep going," Elliot urged. We didn't stop until we reached the abandoned bus terminal on the edge of town. Rows of shattered windows, pigeons nesting where people once waited for rides. "This is it," I panted, holding up the key. Locker 27. We found it half buried under dust and spider webs. The lock turned with a dry click. Inside were 2 drives, a bundle of photographs, and a small notebook. I opened it, and there he was again. Daniel's handwriting. "If you find this, it means Seraphim failed. But they'll keep trying. The real test isn't about medicine, it's about memory." "What does that mean?" I whispered. Elliot frowned. "Memory?" Anna's face drained of color. "Oh, God." She snatched one of the photographs. It showed a lab room, rows of people lying on tables, tubes in their arms, monitors glowing. And at the front, a figure half turned toward the camera. Daniel. He was alive, but not the same. His eyes looked distant, like he wasn't fully there. "They were mapping neural patterns," Anna said, her voice shaking. "Trying to copy consciousness, store it, test it in live hosts. Seraphim wasn't about curing disease. It was about transferring the mind itself." I stared at her, words dying in my throat. "That's impossible," Elliot said. "Not for them," she replied. Daniel volunteered. He thought he could expose them from inside, but if they completed the upload— "Then where is he?" I demanded. "Where's my son now?" Anna met my eyes, tears slipping down her face. "Inside their system," she whispered. "Somewhere digital. Waiting." I felt the room tilt again, the ground dissolving. The photographs fluttered in my hands like broken wings. Before I could speak, headlights flashed through the terminal, windows, bright white, closing in. "They found us," Elliot said. "Run!" He grabbed the drives. Anna pulled me toward the back exit. We burst through the rusted door just as the first bullet hit the locker behind us, exploding metal into sparks. We didn't stop running, not when the night filled with sirens, not when my lungs begged for air. I only remember the sound of Daniel's voice echoing from the recorder in my pocket, faint and fading. "I'm trying to get home, Mom." We ran until my knees felt like fire. The night had swallowed us whole, leaving only the faint orange glow of the terminal burning behind. My breath came in short, uneven bursts, and every inhale tasted like smoke and fear. Elliot led the way down a dirt path toward the old canal, flashlight clutched between his teeth. Anna followed, holding my arm tight, dragging me forward when my body wanted to give up. "They won't stop," she said, panting. "Once they know we've seen the files, they'll keep coming." "What about the drives?" I asked between gasps. Elliot tapped his coat pocket. "Still here. If these contain what I think they do, it's the end of Seraphim." The canal shimmered ahead, black and silent. We crossed a small iron bridge, half rusted through, and slipped into an abandoned boathouse on the other side. The air inside was thick with damp wood and old gasoline. Elliot shut the door and dropped the bolt. For the first time, we could breathe. Anna sat on a crate, clutching her wrist. I knelt beside her, checking the bandage I'd tied earlier. It was soaked again. "You'll need stitches," I murmured. She smiled weakly. "You're starting to sound like him." "Like who?" I asked. "Daniel," she whispered. "He used to scold me the same way whenever I got hurt in the lab. Said I treated my own body like it was replaceable." Her eyes glistened, and for a brief moment, she wasn't the terrified fugitive. She was a wife who'd lost her husband to something far beyond human greed. Elliot rummaged through the dusty shelves and found a small, battery-powered radio. He switched it on. Static hissed through the room. After a few turns of the dial, a faint news voice broke through. "The search continues for missing journalist Elliot Crane, wanted for questioning in connection with the Knoxwell laboratory breach. Authorities warn the public he may be armed and dangerous." He shut it off with a sharp click. "Well," he said flatly, "that answers whether we're being framed." Anna looked up. "They're covering their tracks. That's what Seraphim does best. Erase, replace, rewrite." I stared at them both, the recorder heavy in my hand. If Daniel's consciousness is trapped inside their system, can we bring him back? Anna hesitated. In theory, yes, but only if we access the core server. That's in Knoxwell's central lab, under the river. Restricted facility. Under the river? Elliot scoffed. "You're joking." She shook her head. "It's real. The data center sits below the old dam tunnels. Daniel mentioned it in his last transmission to me. He said that's where they keep the primary neural banks." "Then that's where we go," I said. Both of them turned to me, startled. "Mrs. Whitmore," Elliot began carefully, "this isn't—" "My son is alive in there," I cut in. "You can call it data or code or whatever fancy word you want. But that voice you heard? That's my boy, and I'm not leaving him behind again." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Elliot nodded once. "All right, we'll need transport and access. I know a way into the tunnels, but it's risky." Anna stood. "Risky is fine. Waiting is worse." By dawn, fog had settled over the river like a sheet of breath. The city beyond looked unreal, half drowned in silver mist. We stole a delivery van from a dockyard, old, creaky, but moving. Elliot drove. Anna navigated. I sat in the back, surrounded by crates and the quiet hum of dread. We stopped at a maintenance gate covered in warning signs. Authorized personnel only. River infrastructure. Hazardous entry. Anna punched a code into the pad, her fingers trembling. The gate clicked open with a mechanical groan. "How do you still know the access?" I asked. She smiled grimly. "You'd be surprised what they forget to revoke when they think you're dead." We descended into the tunnels, narrow concrete corridors dripping with condensation, cables crawling along the ceiling like veins. The sound of water echoed below. My shoes slipped on the wet ground. Elliot caught my arm before I fell. "It's all right," he whispered. "Almost there." The corridor widened into a chamber filled with humming servers stacked like tombstones. Cold blue light washed over us, reflecting in Anna's tear-streaked face. "This is it," she breathed. "The neural vault." She pulled a small tablet from her bag, connecting it to one of the terminals. Code spilled across the screen like rain. "If Daniel's file is active, we'll see a signal spike. His pattern signature." Seconds ticked by. The hum deepened. Then, beep, a pulse. "There," she said, her voice trembling. "Pattern D47WM. That's him. He's alive." My heart leapt and broke at the same time. "Can you bring him out?" Anna's hands flew over the controls. "I can try, but I'll need time." Elliot moved toward the doorway, gun drawn, one he'd taken from a fallen guard at the terminal. "Time's what we don't have," he muttered. Footsteps echoed in the distance, voices, the sharp click of safety catches. "They're here," he hissed. Anna typed faster, the tablet beeping in protest. Almost. Then the lights flickered. A voice boomed over the intercom, calm, cold, familiar. "Mrs. Whitmore, you've come a long way." I froze. I knew that voice. "Detective Rains?" The badgeman from the lighthouse. "You shouldn't have opened the box," he continued, his tone almost kind. "Your son made a deal, one that kept you alive. Don't undo his sacrifice." Elliot shouted, "Sacrifice? You murdered him!" Rains sighed. "He volunteered. Project Seraphim wasn't about death. It was about transcendence. He's more alive than any of us now." Anna slammed her fist against the console. "You trapped him!" "Containment," Rains corrected. "He was unstable. The human mind isn't meant to exist without a body. But you, Mrs. Whitmore, you could help him." "Me?" I whispered. "The system responds to familiar patterns. He keeps trying to reach you. We've detected spikes every time your name appears near a signal. You're his anchor." Anna turned to me, horrified. "He wants to merge your neural pattern, to stabilize his own." I shook my head. "That's insane." "Perhaps," Rains said, "but he's calling for you. Listen." The speakers crackled, and then his voice. "My Daniel." "Mom?" The sound hit me like sunlight after years of darkness. "Daniel," I sobbed. "Baby, I'm here." "Can you hear me?" he said, his voice breaking with static. "They said you were safe. Please, don't let them shut me down." "Daniel, hold on," Anna cried, typing furiously. "I'm opening the channel." "Don't," Rains warned. "The moment you break containment, he'll burn out. His neural pattern can't survive outside the host matrix." Elliot lifted the gun. "Then we take the risk." Anna pressed one final key. The lights dimmed, the servers roared, and the air filled with a low hum that rattled the metal walls. "Mom," Daniel whispered again. "I see you." And for a heartbeat, I did see him. A faint silhouette forming in the air, shimmering like heat. His smile, his eyes, everything I thought I'd lost. Then the alarms screamed. "Containment breach," a computerized voice repeated. "System overload in 10 seconds. Elliot shouted, "We have to go." I reached out toward the ghostly figure. "Daniel, come with me." He looked at me, eyes full of something unnameable. Love, pain, apology. "I can't," he said softly. "But I can keep them from following you. Go." The room flashed white. Anna pulled me backward, Elliot shielding us as the servers exploded in a shower of sparks. The tunnel shook, dust raining from the ceiling. We ran, the world collapsing behind us. The last thing I heard before the lights went out completely was my son's voice, faint and calm, like a lullaby from years ago. "I'll find you, Mom. I promise." When I woke up, everything was quiet. Too quiet. My ears rang, my chest ached, and for a moment I thought the world had ended. Smoke drifted through the broken tunnel, catching faint streaks of dawn that bled through a collapsed ventilation shaft. The river above must have burst. Water dripped steadily from the ceiling, falling into shallow puddles around me. "Elliot?" I croaked. My throat was raw. A groan answered somewhere nearby. He was half buried under a fallen beam, coughing, his face streaked with soot. Anna was sprawled beside a pile of rubble, her tablet shattered beside her, its screen flickering weakly. I crawled toward them, each movement a scream in my bones. "We have to move," I said, but my voice was little more than a whisper. Elliot pushed the beam off with a grunt and staggered upright. "The lab's gone," he rasped. Everything's fried." I looked at Anna. She stirred, blinking through the haze. "Daniel?" she whispered. The servers were gone, black husks melting into the floor. Only one remained upright, cracked but pulsing faint blue, like a heartbeat refusing to die. I stumbled toward it. The air still shimmered faintly around the console, static biting my fingertips as I reached out. "Daniel?" The hum deepened for a second, and then a voice, not through the speakers this time, but everywhere, in the air, in my head. "Mom." It wasn't sound, it was thought. His thought. I froze, tears spilling down my cheeks. "I'm here," I whispered. "I'm here, sweetheart." "It's okay," his voice said, soft as a breath of wind. "You made it out. You have to go now." "Come with me," I begged. "Please, we can find a way to—" "No," he said gently. "There's nothing left of me to bring back. My body's gone, but I can do something before this place sinks." "What are you talking about?" Anna had crawled closer, pressing her ear against the console as if she could hear him too. "Daniel, if you overload the core, it'll kill everything in here." "That's the point," he said. "They used me to build Seraphim's seed program. If I erase it now, they can't restart it. No one else will end up like me." "Don't," I sobbed. "Please don't, baby. Let someone else stop them." His voice softened. "I'm tired, Mom. I've been awake for 3 years. I see everything, hear everything, and none of it feels real anymore. But you still are." I fell to my knees. The console glowed brighter, pulsing faster, sinking to my heartbeat like it remembered what we once shared. "Daniel, I'm sorry I didn't believe in you sooner," I whispered. "I should have asked more questions. I should have—" "You believed enough to come for me," he said. "That's more than I could have asked." The walls trembled. The sound of water grew louder. Elliot's voice came from behind, shouting over the roar. "The tunnels are flooding! We've got minutes!" Anna grabbed my shoulders. "We have to leave, now!" But I couldn't move. Not yet. "Daniel," I said again, "if you're doing this, I need to hear it one last time. I need to know my son's still in there." There was a pause, long, aching, and then, clear as sunlight through fog, "I love you, Mom." The blue light surged. A wave of heat rippled through the air, followed by a sound that wasn't a sound at all, just a deep, breaking sigh, like a soul being let go. Anna pulled me away just as the console split open, spilling fire and sparks. We ran. Water poured from the walls, flooding the tunnels. Elliot led us up through a maintenance shaft, his flashlight flickering as we climbed the metal rungs. The roar behind us grew louder and louder until it was everywhere. Then nothing. When we burst out into daylight, the entire section of the riverbank had caved in, swallowing the tunnel below. Steam rose from the water, and for a moment the surface rippled with faint blue light, before it faded completely. I stood there, watching the place where my son had vanished for the second time in my life. My heart felt both hollow and full. He was gone, but this time it wasn't a lie. This time, he chose it. Elliot rested a hand on my shoulder. "He stopped them," he said quietly. "The data's gone, the backups, the clones, everything. You should be proud." "I am," I whispered. "But I'd trade every truth in the world just to hold him once more." Anna was crying silently beside me. Her face looked so young, so exhausted. "He wanted peace," she murmured. "He has it now." The wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain and metal and something faintly electric, as though his presence lingered still. Weeks passed. The investigation blamed a gas explosion at Knoxwell's river facility. No one mentioned Seraphim or Daniel or the people who vanished into its wires. The story was buried like everything else they wanted forgotten. Elliot disappeared shortly after. No note, no trace. Maybe he went underground again. Maybe he'd finally had enough of chasing ghosts. Anna stayed for a while. We lived quietly in my old house, repairing what was left of our lives one small thing at a time. She'd make tea in the mornings, just the way Daniel used to like it, too sweet, too strong, and leave one cup across from mine at the table, untouched. Sometimes at night, I'd sit by the window, the same one where this story began, and listen to the rain. And sometimes, just sometimes, I'd hear a faint hum in the old radio, like a heartbeat. Once, when I reached out to turn the dial, a soft voice whispered through the static. "Rock of Ages, cleft for me." It was Daniel's favorite hymn. I didn't cry that time. I just smiled and whispered back, "I'm listening, sweetheart." Months later, a small package arrived at my door. No return address, just my name, written in Daniel's slanted hand. Inside was a single USB drive wrapped in cloth. When I plugged it into my computer, a folder opened with one file, formom.mp4. The screen went black, then flickered. Daniel's face appeared, whole, warm, alive. "If you're seeing this," he said, "then somehow, something of me made it through." His smile trembled. "Don't look for me anymore. Just live. Tell them the truth if you have to, but promise me you'll live." The video ended with him laughing, soft, unguarded, the way he used to when he was small. The sound filled the room, bright and heartbreaking. I sat there for a long time afterward, watching the blank screen, waiting for it to fade, for the ache to settle. But instead, something unexpected happened. The faint blue glow of the monitor pulsed once, in rhythm with my own heartbeat. "Mom?" a voice whispered through the speakers. I closed my eyes. "Yes, Daniel," I murmured. "Thank you." And then the screen went dark for good. I leaned back, tears slipping down my face, but this time they weren't from grief. They were from something gentler, something close to peace. Because for the first time since that knock on my door, I knew exactly where my son was. Not trapped, not gone, just finally free. And every time it rains, I swear I can still hear him in the hum of the storm, laughing, watching, whispering softly through the static,